Fever FM, the number one choice in Leeds.
जैसे कि मैं आपसे पहले ही बता चुका हूँ कि बता रहा था कि हमारे पास we have this young lady, Rebecca Goshawk. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Welcome to Fever FM, and she is the head of public affairs and partnership at Solace Women's Aid. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Women's Aid, Solace. Can you tell us a little bit about it, please? What do you do? What sort of people seek help from you?
Sure, yeah. So Solace Women's Aid has been supporting victims and survivors of domestic abuse since for over 45 years now.
Right.
So we started following the Women's March in 1971 and have been supporting communities in London, Camden and Enfield, and have grown to be a pan-London charity who are there to support survivors of domestic abuse, sexual violence and wider child and sexual exploitation. So yeah, we're really here to be a source of advice, of support, to allow people to access therapeutic or counselling, and really help them to get on their road to recovery, whether that's in their community, still based in their homes, or we also do run refuges or shelters for women who need to flee quickly to gain safety. But yeah, our key thing really is about making women safe and keeping them safe.
Oh, that's good. Domestic abuse is one of the things it runs in all the communities. There's various kinds of domestic abuse. Is there any particular field you deal in, or you help anybody, whoever is suffering from whatever form?
Yeah, we're there to support anyone who needs us, really. There's not a particular communities that we support, but we do know that there are, communities that need different kind of support. But in terms of abuse, we know that most women experience multiple forms of abuse. Actually, it's not just physical or not just sort of controlling behavior. It's often a mixture of those, and they can escalate over time.
Can you describe me can you give me a few examples of this abuse?
Yeah, so there's often a concern that abuse starts with perhaps controlling behaviour. So that's people where people perhaps are checking where people are going or putting restrictions on their movements. So or it could be simply someone belittling or always blaming someone. So that's kind of the emotional side that we see. We sometimes see people where they're kind of accusing of wanting to dominate their time or controlling their money, for example.
As we hear about this, this sort of thing goes on quite a lot, and the answer comes back. A lot of people defend themselves in a way. They say, "Oh, we are so much in love with that person. We, want the best for them and whatever." Well, is that the good enough excuse for them to control somebody in every way?
We don't see that. I think often people kind of can say that it's about love, but actually what we see with when it is abuse or violence, it's about control, or as you said, power. I think that's the thing. Loving relationships shouldn't be controlling or about a power dynamic. So we don't see that as a defense for, whether that's emotional abuse, threats or physical abuse. It's often about keeping control and power, and then that's what we need to break down and see equal kind of status within the relationship, not one trying to dominate the other.
Obviously a lot of ladies go through this for years and years before they realize is something, are they under the impression that it is the love, people keep repeating to them? And when do you realize, no, this is different. This is not what we want.
Yeah, it's a really good question. I mean, we've seen in our services, for example, on average, people have experienced around 6 years and 4 months of abuse before they even come to us. And that's the average. So there are many in relationships for much longer than that before they either recognize the signs of abuse. As you say, it's not always easy, and it can start with feeling that it's a loving expression and then it builds over time. But also we see, as we mentioned, it's about control. So sometimes it's about not having the opportunity to leave, whether that's because you don't have the financial means to leave. You're worried about your children. You know, many people want to have two parents involved in their children's lives, so that's a real concern. But also things like threats of being homeless, because domestic abuse is actually the number one cause of homelessness in England and Wales at the moment.
Really?
So I think there's some real practical things that mean women or men who experience abuse find it really difficult to see. And as you say, you know, it's about recognizing the signs sometimes, which we don't underestimate is easy. But also people, you know, have their families around them and may not, you know, want to upset that or cause issues with their family. But really we're saying that, you know, you don't have to tolerate this, and there are people out there who can support you with those challenges that you might face if you leave that relationship.
But still, there must be a difficult step to take, really.
It is. It's incredibly difficult for women to we predominantly support women to be able to leave. You know, thinking that you have to pack up your whole life, potentially with your children, and move to a different area to feel safe, or, you know, you may lose your house. You know, it may have an effect on your relationship with family and friends around you. So we don't underestimate how difficult it is for people to leave. But I suppose it's saying that there are ways to do so, and there are people that can get you to safety and support you to rebuild your life following that experience.
I mean, it's pretty common, isn't it? I was reading somewhere that is it 1 in 3 women who go through this?
Yeah, they say 1 in 3 women globally will experience domestic abuse, and 1 in 4 women in the UK will experience it at some point in their life. In London alone, 1 in 10 recorded offences were domestic abuse related. And that's actually, we think, potentially an underestimate of the number of people, because many people don't feel comfortable reporting to the police, or there's reasons where they don't report. So yeah, I think it's really worrying to know that we think that 1 in 4 women experience domestic abuse in their lifetime.
Rebecca, obviously when people come to you, they must be in a terrible state of mind, going through all the abuse they've gone through. They must be feeling horrible and terrible in their life. And can you give me any example, you know, people who've sought help and, you know, you've given them, provided everything, safe places to live in, etc., taking their worries away. Can you give me an example? How do they react? How do they feel afterwards?
I mean, the frontline teams that we have at Solace are incredibly supportive of women, and it's really is, as you say, creating housing for them, supporting them to perhaps manage their finances for the first time sometimes. But it can be really overwhelming to see the difference it can make to their lives as they kind of go on this new path and new start to their life often. You know, we get huge thanks about the thinking that without us, we would have gone back to that relationship or not been able to rebuild their life. So I think hearing that those support services, us and many others across the country, provide can be incredibly heartwarming and really allow women to flourish. You know, they can have that sense of independence and self-confidence that they may have not had for years and years.
And, you know, I mean, once people have come out and whatever, is there, you know, do some of them, do they go back to them old relationships again? Or...
Yeah, unfortunately, you know, we do see, we sometimes see, we actually work with perpetrators of abuse as well. And we do see that there is an ability for those that perpetrate abuse to change. So people do go into relationships, they can become healthier. We do unfortunately see, you know, sometimes because of children or because of, you know, all the factors that make life hard once you've left a relationship, people do go back. And unfortunately, some groups are more likely to be affected more than once, so have multiple perpetrators of their abuse, whether that's in the same incident. So, you know, family members are involved in the abuse, as well as perhaps, you know, we often think of partners or husband and wife, but it can be wider than that. But also, you know, there's...
How do you mean wider? The relatives, close relatives, brothers and sisters as well, or...
There can be sibling abuse. Yeah, we do see that, and we actually get, examples of perhaps, child to parent abuse, whether particularly when their parents are a bit older. There's financial control of parents. Like, domestic abuse is quite wide. It's those that you've got a personal connection to that is seen as a definition. So there are, complexities in family relationships, and that does mean that they can turn to be abusive relationships in other ways as well. Yeah, whether that's child to parent, siblings, parent to adult child. Yeah,
There's
and
a
it
lot
can
of
be,
it goes on.
yeah, there can be wider, more than one person in a family that's involved, perhaps in the financial control or in the sort of intimidation and threats that sometimes comes along with domestic abuse as part of it.